Welcome to the Advertising Heat Check, where we keep a real-time pulse on what's heating up and what's cooling off in marketing and more specifically in advertising. This is honest insight from marketers actually in the arena right now. Each episode, we ask two simple questions. What's heating up? What's cooling down? I'm Matt Behrend, a marketing veteran and CEO of Agility. Very excited today for us to get insights from Collin Fleming. Collin, how are you?
Doing great, Matt. How about yourself?
Doing well. Thanks for taking the time to join us. I'll tell our audience a little bit about you. Collin's been building and leading digital media strategies for about 15 years for some of the largest brands in sports and entertainment, including ESPN, Netflix, Caesars Entertainment. He's done some really cool things. He's worked on Oscar-winning campaigns. They gave him some once in a lifetime experiences like jumping on Floyd Mayweather's private jet. Definitely somebody you want to swap stories. And if you're curious, he's a Tar Heels fan, did his MBA at UNC. If anyone has a chance to get to know you, I hope they also ask you about proposing to your wife right after a bird pooped on her. That's crazy. We don't have time for that story right now, but now you're loving life with a 4-month-old. So time for the Advertising Heat Check. Collin, tell me what's heating up right now. What's working for you in marketing or advertising in your world?
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, Matt. For me, honestly, biggest thing is attribution. So being able to show that your marketing efforts are working is one of the most difficult things to do. And when you're able to go in and have randomized control trials or placebo controlled trials to show incrementality, that is the biggest thing. And when you're able to prove out incrementality, what that allows us to do, or what that allows my campaigns to do, is show this is how much money I spent. This is how much incremental revenue you generated. And for me, that has been an absolute game changer for not only showcasing what it is that I'm doing with my campaigns, but for the people I'm doing the campaigns for clients, for them to go to their internal champions and get that buy-in and really show off the wins. I would say that has been one of the biggest things. And then the other biggest thing has been retail media networks. I don't know if you know this or not, but it's projected, eMarketer did a survey, and they actually project that $74 billion is going to be spent against retail media networks and retail media audiences in 2026 alone. That number is supposed to jump up to nearly 100 billion, 97 billion by 2028. And just making sure that you are advertising within the retail media networks, leveraging all the audiences that they have, but then applying those basic fundamentals of marketing, making sure you're telling that right story based off of where consumers are in their buyer's journey, and then proving it with the closed loop attribution. Those are the two things in my world right now that are really heating up.
Interesting. So the closed loop attribution, obviously really, really hard for a lot of companies connecting the data across these different channels. Improving incrementality. I mean, that's kind of that we're constantly hearing from guests on the podcast and just other people in the industry. Incrementality is the holy grail right now. And it's interesting where some of the walled gardens are going more black box. And it's in some ways even more difficult to measure what's actually happening. So the randomized control trial is super interesting. And how are you applying that? Are you able to apply that across different channels? Because that's the thing that I think I hear the most that companies struggle to do.
Yeah. And right now we're leveraging that across the open internet. So when we're talking display ads, online video, streaming audio, connected TV, what we're able to do when we're leveraging a randomized control trial is we're going to hold out a very small portion of the audience and the absolute bare minimum to make sure that we can achieve statistical significance. And when you do that, that's how you're able to look at the lift that you're able to show. This is what would have happened with my campaign, and this is what happens without my campaign. And that's the beauty of these incremental randomized control trials. So instead of serving someone an ad for their brand, you could serve them an ad like wear your seatbelt or a PSA, something to that effect. And that's what allows for us to see that lift. So on those channels, on the open internet, that's where we're really able to dive deep and show you this is the incremental impact that our campaign is having on your brand.
Interesting. So you can run experiments more effectively where you're, for example, running full funnel brand advertising. It's something that a lot of companies want to do, but they're just not able to prove that it's worth the risk to CFO or whoever else is involved in the budget decision making. And so now they can carve out a test portion of their budget, run a randomized control trial. Why does the randomization matter? Why not just use geo holdout studies or other types of lift studies?
Yeah, and honestly, that's a really good question. On paper, that makes a lot of sense. But for example, Matt, I live in New Jersey on the border, like right on the Hudson River. So if I go 5 minutes the other way, I'm in New York City. So let's say I'm holding out New York and I'm using New Jersey as a test market. I could be served that ad in New Jersey, but then I go 10 minutes into New York City. Now I'm making that purchase in New York. That is what's going to cloudy the waters, if you will. That's what makes it muddy. It's so difficult to actually make sure that one device ID is not going across your test and control. So that's why when we do the randomized control trial, we're holding out an audience based off of device IDs. So that device ID is not being served an ad anywhere. So you don't have to worry about them living in New Jersey and working in New York, or living in Orange County and going up to Los Angeles or down to San Diego, which happens so often. So that's why you just have so much more control of that. And to your point earlier, what's great about the randomized control trial is you're also able to look at the lift that you're driving across the full funnel. So we could look at the incremental lift that you're getting on upper funnel traffic all the way down to sales conversions. So that's what just makes it so valuable. It's the level of granularity you're able to get across the funnel. And on top of that, making sure that you're only reaching who you want to reach and holding out. So you don't have to worry about your holdout being exposed in your control.
Interesting. All right. Well, thank you. That does seem to hit on something that's really critical right now as advertising channels continue to evolve and just refuse to play nice with each other. I mean, it's like, they're competing or something. Okay. Well, let's move on from the heat check. Let's get to the reality check. What is cooling down? What is not working in your world right now?
Yeah, for me, biggest thing is last click, last touch attribution. It's just so funny to me, but so many brands are looking at what was the last touch that I had before a conversion took place. And I always like to say, if there's two jobs you want, Matt, it's you want to work in HR and you want to work in search. Because if you work in HR, you're never going to fire yourself. And if you work in search, you get all the credit and all the attributions. But the reality is, when you look at last touch, think of it like a line at Disneyland, for example. When you look at last click, last touch, you're only looking at people after they get off the ride. And the reality is, you want to understand what is in the pipeline, what is influencing people to get in that line. So you want to look at people at the beginning of the line, at the middle of the line, right when they're about to board. And that could be all the different phases of your funnel, the high intent traffic, the sales activation portion. There's so many different things that really help for you to understand. And that's why looking at pipeline value is so much more valuable. And on top of that, so many people are just locked in. So many brands are locked into what GA4 says. And when you think about GA4, GA4 literally stands for Google Analytics. It's built by Google. And what is the ultimate channel that allows for you to be last click, last touch? Well, search. And that's why GA4 is always going to put such a big emphasis on that last click, last touch, because that's where search happens. But the reality is, if someone sees an ad, more times than often, they're not going to click on that ad and go straight to a website. And based off campaigns I've run, I would say what we see is 1 out of every 7 site visit is actually influenced by a click. So that 6 out of every 7 is more of a view through attribution. And when you think about it, well, if you're listening to a streaming audio ad, you're not going to click your AirPods and go straight to the website. Or if you get a CTV ad, you can't just walk up to the big screen and hit your TV and go to the website. So that's why view through attribution is so important. And what user habit is when you see an ad, you're going to search that ad and then go to the website that way. So with last click, last touch, you're only focusing on the last part of the journey and not all the things. So going back to incrementality, that is something that's so important to look at that. So you're not so hyper focused on last click, last touch.
So yeah, that's awesome. I absolutely agree. There's a lot of frustration around that, just around search in general. And a lot of companies obviously struggle with moving from last touch attribution into multi-touch. Once they've done that, which most of our audience is mid-market enterprise, marketers who are sophisticated in their systems, they have multi-touch attribution. It is surprising though how many still depend on a last touch system. So I'm glad you're calling that out. I agree. We see it a lot. I'm sure there are people out there just shaking their heads, frustrated that Last touch is just sort of all the way that they've always done it. Moving to multi-touch, I mean, that's a step up. Is that good enough? I'm sensing a theme here. You were talking about randomized control trials and the scientific rigor that that brings, as opposed to last touch. I'm guessing multi-touch doesn't quite get you there. What about the kind of step in between multi-touch and a randomized control trial like an MMM?
Yeah, and MMM is really good, but I would say MMM still needs to evolve. They still need a lot of learning. And oftentimes with MMMs, the user is the one who is setting the control and applying the weights. So if you come from a last click, last touch attribution, when you're setting up that MMM, you're going to put the weight there. So that's one of the call outs to keep an eye out as well. So MMMs are good, but think of it like a learning language model, for example. They're still learning and they're constantly, the more inputs you're able to put in, the more it's going to learn. So I'm a big fan of, we mentioned it, but the best way you can get it is incremental lift studies. That is, in my opinion, the most definitive source of whether or not something is running or something is working for you. But with the MMMs, it's very directional. So I would say listen to it, but don't use it as your definitive source of truth. And you should, yeah, again, make sure you're paying attention to what you're seeing in there. But if you really want to understand the incrementality you're getting from a channel, incremental lift studies are definitely the way to go.
That's pretty exciting. Collin, before we go, we'd love to get to know you a little bit better. What is making you happier or smarter lately?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Matt. I'm a big believer of Mamba mentality. I don't know if you could see it here, but I even have a signed Kobe Bryant poster that I keep on my wall at all times. And I love to start every day by just reading a Kobe quote. And even out of my last job at Caesars Entertainment, I would make our team wrap up every week by doing the Kobe quote of the week, where whoever went above and beyond got the honor of sharing whatever quote meant the most to them that was aligned with Mamba mentality. So anything Mamba mentality, I'm subscribed to. I truly believe that hard work is going to allow you to get ahead. And on top of that, I've been crushing biographies from different CEOs. So the last two that I've read have been Shoe Dog by Nike CEO Phil Knight and also The Ride of a Lifetime by Disney CEO Bob Iger. And both of them are so unique because they're truly stories about perseverance and just finding a way to make that work. Whether it's Bob Iger actually shares a really interesting story about when he was a production assistant starting off at ABC. He was tasked with getting coverage of a table tennis tournament in North Korea in 1970s. Who is going to get into North Korea? And Bob Iger found a way to make it work. And that lesson of just finding a way to make it work really stuck with him from 1970s all the way to acquiring Pixar from Steve Jobs. So like those are the type of things that I just always keep in mind. And then if you have a chance to read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, it is insane that Nike is a company today. Like all of the hurdles that they went through, all of the verge of bankruptcies, but they just kept persevering and finding a way. And to me, that's the approach that I like to bring every day to work and life. Just outwork the competition, put in the hours, and find a way to make it work. I never want to hear the expression "can't be done" because there's always a way to make it happen. So those are kind of the things I've been crushing right now.
I love that. It's infectious, the intensity about you and the optimism. You need that as a marketer, right? Marketers struggle with so much ambiguity. Thankfully, marketing in a lot of ways is trending more towards it's becoming a lot more data based. I know that's a weird thing to say because a lot of people would say, no, it's completely data driven right now. But when you're dealing with advertising channels that don't talk to each other and you can't connect the data or your company just won't give you the resources to do it, that's probably more realistic. Without something like Mamba mentality or the kind of grit that you need to push through that ambiguity and still survive, life gets hard as a marketer. One of the reasons we started this podcast is up-to-date knowledge is so critical for marketers about what's working and what's not. We have to learn from each other. I want to fundamentally change the fact that CMOs are the highest turnover position on executive teams. It shouldn't be that way. It takes a long time for a marketer to get truly in touch and develop intuition about a customer and what speaks to them. Systems are getting a lot better at shortcutting that and protecting marketers better, frankly, protecting their decision making. Collin, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate your time and all the advice that you've given us.
Awesome. Definitely, Matt. Always great to catch up.
Well, that's today's Heat Check. If this was useful, please share it with other marketing leaders who are in the arena right now making hard calls. Subscribe to the Advertising Heat Check to learn the best of what's going on in advertising and marketing today from the top marketers that are in the arena every day.